Hello, hello. It is your girl Marisa Star of Star TV, and we haven't sat in the living room in a while. But welcome to the living room. I think it's time that we have a little family chit chat, okay? There is this phenomenon that is occurring right now in the United States of the America, child, where Donald Trump is reigning as the president, the leader of the free world, if you will. So, as you all have probably heard, there was a high percentage of Latino descendant voters that voted for Donald Trump. And as a result, well, let's get into the background first, and then we'll get into the result.
While a majority of Black and Latino voters turned out for Vice President Kamala Harris in this election, President-elect Donald Trump made significant inroads with both groups, especially Latinos, to help him secure the White House. Voter surveys from the Associated Press show that the president-elect won 43% of the overall Latino.
That is a 8% boost from 4 years prior. So Latinos have increased their interest and support of Donald Trump. The Latinos that voted, of course. Okay, herein lies the problem. Trump approached his campaign rhetoric letting everybody know, not just the Latinos, not just the Hispanics, not just the Black people, not just the white people. He stood on national world stages in front of the United States of the America and let you all know that one of his first orders of business, if he were to be elected into the presidential seat, would be to secure the borders and deport illegals. Who are the biggest population of illegal migrants in this country? Well, because we are bordered with Mexico, I would think it would be Mexicans. Okay? Follow me now. Follow me.
Latino vote. That's an 8-point increase from 2020. And this year, 48% of Latino men voted for Mr. Trump. For a closer look, I spoke yesterday with Pastor Samuel Rodriguez. He's president of the National Hispanic Christian Leadership Conference and a former advisor to Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama. Pastor Rodriguez, welcome back to the News Hour.
Thank you for having me.
Well, before the election, you predicted that Latinos and Latino evangelicals in particular would vote for Donald Trump. Why? I mean, understanding that no group is a monolith, his support among Hispanic voters is up 8 points from 2020. What accounts for it?
I really do believe that what we experienced in this election was the official breaking up of the Latino community with the Democratic Party. It doesn't have to be a permanent breakup, by the way. It would require a bit of humility on behalf of the Democratic operatives. The primary reason I do believe has to do with faith. Latinos are becoming more and more evangelical every single year. That evangelical ethos will prompt them to embrace what you would deem as conservative values, what we deem as.
In short, that individual who called in to that show on behalf of the Latin community is basically saying that because traditionally Republicans align with traditional American and holy Christian values, that is the reason that we saw the increase in Republican support. However, that logic and rhetoric fails because Donald Trump is technically not a Republican. He ran on the Republican ticket, but he does not embody any of those values that the Latinos are supposedly gearing towards. So that point is a little confusing. It's also a little confusing if you live in an area that has a high Hispanic population, specifically Mexicans, that they would want to live in a traditional type of Republican type of space, just because in real life practice, that is not what you see in the majority of Mexican and wholly Hispanic communities. We see out of wedlock births. We see reliance on government assistance. We see getting paid under the table. So which of those values really aligns with being a traditional Christian, foundational Christian? Yeah, that's confusing. But let's get into the end result because they got a little thing that's called FAFO. Look around and find out. Yeah, so a lot of our Latino brothers and sisters, they looked around and found out. But it is what it is at this point, and Black people, we're going to sit back and mind our Black ass business per usual, okay?
First, I will declare a national emergency at our southern border. All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. We will reinstate my Remain in Mexico policy. I will end the practice of catch and release. And I will send troops to the southern border to repel the disastrous invasion of our country.
So last I checked, the majority of America consists of white Americans, Black Americans. Then we have the piece that is increasingly growing, which is the Latino Americans that came here from Hispanic countries, Spanish-speaking countries, Spanish-cultured countries, a lot of that have been colonized by the Spanish, which is why you speak Spanish. However, traditionally classified as people of color. So why would it have benefited Hispanics and Latinos as a whole to vote for Donald Trump? There is no answer because it didn't. So when he was speaking about deportation and closing the border to Mexico, who exactly did y'all think he was referring to? That's the part where y'all are losing me. Not a whole lot of Black Mexicans, and definitely not a whole bunch of Americans that are living in Mexico trying to get to America. So seems like Mexicans would be the one trying to get to America, right? Which would make them Latinos, Hispanics, right? Which would mean that 43% y'all voted against the interests of your own community. That's confusing, but let's proceed.
Breaking news, Donald Trump canceled all flights for thousands of refugees who were already approved to settle into the United States. He also canceled their cases, effectively shuttering the program for them. It's important to note that special immigrant visa holders are an exception, as well as refugees who are already present in the United States. The craziest part is that these refugees have already been vetted, processed, and approved to resettle legally in the United States based on the conditions of their home country. Taking away the opportunity for people to seek refuge legally was not part of Trump's campaign. So it wasn't a
schools and churches to avoid arrest. The Trump administration will not tie the hands of our brave law enforcement and instead trust them to use common sense, essentially giving them free will to go into a church, a place of worship, or a school and arrest a possible undocumented migrant.
Any Black people in the audience, raise your hand. Why was it ever a law that if you are breaking the law, you couldn't be arrested in church or school of any of that sort? I'm not clear because last I checked, we were accosted, arrested, lynched, mobbed, anywhere, especially specifically in places of worship. So yeah, why was that ever a law? So I can't honestly stand behind the people who are behind equalizing these type of things, because that was never it was never illegal for that to be done to other people of color. So if you're breaking the law and you're here in the country illegally, it is the law that there's a specific process that must be followed in order for you to gain entry into this country. And that's not only for the safety of residents here, that's for the safety of yourself as well. Because there are people who apparently they hop on boats, they come over here in shipping containers and all types of weird, dangerous conditions. And not only adults, they actually put children in the mix of the shenanigans. So that's for everybody's safety involved. Do we as American taxpaying citizens deserve to know who is infiltrating our borders? Absolutely. It's called national security. So if you go against what is the law of the land, that means you don't have respect for the country as a whole and its citizens.
has been a long-standing policy in the United States of America to avoid these sensitive areas, given the sensitive nature of making an arrest in front of young children at schools, for example. This would essentially allow ICE agents to go into a school, arrest a teacher in front of a kindergarten classroom, and yet not enough people are talking about it. Comment below your thoughts, spread the word, and as always, follow along, stay up to date on all the news you need to know about. I'm sure there'll be more to come soon.
Chicago, born and raised. Deportation is going to start on January 21st. What that means is if you have no paperwork to prove that you can be in the United States, they're going to start rounding up people left and right that are undocumented. Now, Chicago is a sanctuary city. What that means is it protects people that do not have paperwork, that are here illegally. But unfortunately, the Trump administration is not playing no games. The governor cannot save you. The mayor cannot save you. Trump's not playing no games. As he was campaigning, he was letting everybody know what's going to happen. Now, my advice to anybody that does not have paperwork in Chicago, do not be outside thinking you're going to be safe, that this is not going to happen. This administration is not playing no games. They're coming after everybody that's in this country illegally. What they're telling you is they want you to come here, but they want you to come here legally with paperwork. So Chicago is going to see something that has never been seen in our history. Be careful. Do not do nothing stupid. If you get caught, just follow the rules and see what happens.
Chismosas, I have an updated list on the locations where immigration have been spotted in around the country. As you guys know, I have been putting together a list of different places where people have been sending in tips from. Now, here is the updated list. Now we've added Detroit, Michigan. As some people have said, generally in East LA, San Juan, Capistrano, Massachusetts area. They didn't say specifically where. Westmont, Illinois, Wheeling, Illinois, Buffalo Grove, Illinois, Schaumburg, Illinois, Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, Brooklyn Center, Minnesota, Pacoima, California, Glendale Heights, Illinois, Rockford, Illinois, Orlando, Florida, Appleton, Wisconsin, Lakewood, Colorado, and Durham, North Carolina. Now, I wish that was all. Apparently, there have also been sightings of ICE helicopters.
So what does this mean overall? This means it's not exclusive to any particular area. You know, the main focus point would have been near the border, which would have been Texas and surrounding areas. However, this is across the nation where there are high population Hispanic communities, specifically Mexican. More likely than not that you're going to find people who have ventured into this country illegally. So that pretty much includes a variety of states. You will be surprised how far a lot of Mexicans have traveled, all the way up to New York and Connecticut and the Midwest, all those type of states that got here illegally. So this is a national effort. See, initially we thought, because it hasn't even been a week since the man's been in the presidency. Initially we thought, okay, he will start in Texas. No, baby, this is a national executive order that affects every city, every town, every county, every state. And he's instituting sanctions and punishments if the local leadership decide not to follow the executive order. Now, I can respect the standing on of the business for sure.
You have the right, and share this to everyone you know, so everyone's aware. You have the right to remain silent. If ICE knocks on your door, you don't have to answer it. Do not consent to any searches if they do not have a warrant signed by a judge. They don't even have the right.
I can't agree with this advice. I cannot agree. If you are in this country illegally, there is no escaping. Right now, there is no escaping being deported, caught, or imprisoned, or a combination of all of the sort. There is no escaping that. So you can delay it, get your affairs in order, and make sure the kids are good, and whatever needs to be done. But delayed is not denied. These people are getting paid, and it is their sole mission. And when I say they, I'm referring to ICE, baby, to get people who do not belong here out of here. And they will do that by any means. So trying to delay and not open the door and not communicate, okay, like I said, if you need to get your affairs in order, that is fine. But to think that you're not going to have to deal with the consequences of your decision making, that's flawed logic.
to be in your property. So please remain silent. Do not sign any documents, especially if you do not understand. If you are in public and ICE stops you, please remain silent. You do not have to disclose your immigration status. They do not have the right to search your belongings or your bag without a warrant. You do not have to answer their questions. Please do not give them information that they can use against you. Share this information to people that you know, your friends, your family, especially if they are undocumented immigrants. Please stay on the lookout. Look up for each other. If you spot ICE in your area, share to keep your community informed. And to my fellow immigrants, I know this is a scary time, that there are community and resources that can help you know your rights, and please stay strong.
So I decided to keep my daughter home because she had a little bit of a fever. So I go across the street to Walgreens to grab her some Tylenol. I see 3 undercover cops. They look like undercover cops to me, but I didn't think none of it. So I left Walgreens. I went to 7-Eleven real quick to grab me a French vanilla Frappuccino real quick. So I go in there. I see 4 more of these motherfuckers, right? So I asked one of them. I was like, hey, are y'all undercover cops? Because I just seen like a couple of y'all up the street at Walgreens. And he was like, something like that. He was like, we're here from out of town working. He was like, but have a great day. You could tell he wasn't trying to tell me too much, but I was being nosy as hell at this point. So tell me why I get home. My neighbors are immigrants, right? They packing their shit up. They've been packing their shit up for the last 3 days. They said that they're moving to the Southlands area because they are, tired of seeing these Venezuelans over here, lurking around late at night. And I don't see them over here. But when I do my comedy shows and I get home late at night, that's when I be seeing these motherfuckers lurking around. So I be having my taser, my pepper spray on that, and I hurry up and I run to the house because my son be watching my daughter for me when I be doing my shows. So it hit me. It hit me when I went to take out the trash and I seen them damn Venezuelans packing their shit up and leaving. It hit me like ICE is really fucking here. ICE is really here in Denver, Colorado to do these raids. If you have kids that are born in America and you are undocumented and your kids are U.S. citizens and they born here, they are not considered U.S. citizens. Like everybody getting set the fuck back at this point. And so it makes me nervous for the people that I know that are hard workers that are genuinely here trying to get their paperwork done and trying to get their paperwork in order. Those are the people that I feel bad for. The only people I don't feel bad for is these damn Venezuelans, because they do be out here lurking at night and they do be into shit. They be touching people's shit, stealing people's cars. They do be out here doing the most. Those are the only motherfuckers that I feel like gotta go. But everybody else, y'all please be safe because ICE is out here in Denver. So please be safe and stay out the way. And I know y'all ain't gonna see them damn Venezuelans trying to clean them damn windshields today because ICE is really out here. Be safe, y'all.
ICE is out here raiding people's apartments. I was driving to the office this morning. I saw the ICE truck. And I also saw a lot of police officers on the motorcycles. So you guys, please stay indoor and be silent. Even if they knock on your door, do not say a word. Like just stay indoor at this point. Do not come out. Because they are literally targeting Hispanics. Because all the cars that got pulled over this morning, I believe over 30 cars got pulled over this morning. And they were all Hispanics. So just be mindful and beware of your surrounding at this moment because they are out here looking for you guys. Like, this is insane. I'm still shaking because it was just like cars with.
Look at the amount of compassion and empathy that our people can show for other groups of people, but never get the same in return. It's very sad, and I wish that we would get into the business of minding our own business a little more. We have our own mess to clean up. We still have progress and work to do for us being oppressed in this country for centuries now. So let's allow the Hispanic and Latino communities to handle their own affairs and report the ICE trucks and all of those things.
Was just passing by and I'm like, wait, am I getting pulled over? I'm not driving fast. and just flying that cape so high that we really can't separate ourselves from that role. I will not be doing anything that could potentially negatively impact this household, me.
Amen to that. Like I was just saying, we need to get more in the habit of focusing on our own front porch. What do the old people say? Sweep your own front porch. I'm focused on sweeping my own front porch. Doesn't mean I lack compassion or I can't really empathize with being illegal in the country because, my people were brought here in shackles and forcibly made to stay here, and they're forcibly penalized for being here and just simply existing and breathing air. So not a lot of empathy. I can show compassion for the children, but ultimately it's the adults' responsibility and not to put their kids in these type of situations. But you can't tell people anything. That's kind of how that goes. But Black people, we really need to take a back seat when it comes to these type of issues. Like, it's not our issue. We don't need to. No. Black Americans. No. Okay, we're good. Sit back, relax, just watch the show. This is who the people voted to be president. So they voted against their interests, but they also voted against our interests as well. So we really need to sit back, hands off, mind your business. Just mind your business.
Or my children, including protecting yours. The things that this administration said were going to happen are happening. And how we tried to help was pointing out to you that these particular things were going to be counterproductive to your own physical safety, health, wellness, and financial situations. And you know what Gen Pop said? Gen Pop said, that's fine. We hate Black women so much, we're willing to risk that. So now that it's here, as a Black woman, a person who's already in a marginalized group, I cannot do anything to help you without putting myself at risk of more marginalization, the kind that they already said was going to happen. So what am I going to do? Absolutely nothing.
I just got back from the farmer's market. I buy my produce at a farmer's market so I can get it directly from the farms themselves. The produce tastes way better, it's cheaper, and it's easier to access quality food. So I just went to this stand that sells vegetables that's from the Central Valley, and I get a lot of my produce from them every single Sunday. And I asked them, hey, did the ICE raids affect you guys? Are you guys okay? And the woman looked at me, and it took her a minute to respond, and she said, almost all of our produce went bad because there was no one to pick any of it. And I live in this area where everybody's in support of it. Everybody's in support of deporting immigrants. And I'm just so tired of spending my whole life feeling so out of place and so misunderstood because I care about things that actually matter and nobody around me gets it.
How dare you be anti-immigration when you and or your family benefited from immigrating to America? Watching people who literally have accents speaking English, cannot speak English fluently, say that they're against immigration. Are you out of your goddamn mind? Y'all forget where you come from. At one point in time, either your mother or you were an immigrant in America who probably didn't know how to speak English, barely spoke English, didn't know how to navigate this world, and came here for better opportunities. Turning your back, stabbing the people who are trying to come to America and cheering on deportation raids. Seriously, take a good look in the mirror and I hope you're embarrassed. I hope you're embarrassed.
When I said that those mass deportations are going to land people in labor camps, here is how I know that that is going to be the case. Every person in the United States, citizen or not, just by being on U.S. soil, has the right to due process. What do you think is going to happen when there are millions of people in queue to be deported? Where are they going to keep them? Camps. Labor camps. And it's going to be labor camps because they're going to spin this rhetoric of, well, they're not contributing to our society, so we have to put them to work.
Not gonna lie, that's not the worst idea I've ever heard. So, as somebody who has worked on a state and federal level, And if you have ever worked in a capacity that you dealt with refugees or illegal migrants, you realize because of the culture, they honestly, as a whole, we spend a lot of money trying to accommodate these people. And they're not bringing in any money because most of them don't really qualify to pay taxes because they're not citizens. They don't have a social. So a lot of them get paid under the table. They're not paying into the tax system, but we spend a lot of money. So you're, let's say somebody lands in the country. They land in the country, they get connected with resources, they end up at the health department. Okay, they have 5 kids. So got to vaccinate the 5 kids. Have a tendency to have an abundance of kids, so probably pregnant or will be pregnant soon. Got to get them on Medicaid. Got to pay for the food through EBT. Got to pay for them to give birth through Medicaid, which is thousands on thousands of thousands of dollars. Got to put the kids in school. That costs. We got to feed them while they're at school. That costs. We got to help them with housing. That costs. A lot of our social benefit programs do not require you to be a citizen. People who don't pay into the system should not be benefiting from the system. Herein lies another issue with people coming here illegally. Sorry to say, but the answer from Star TV is a resounding no. No, thank you.
We're going to be targeting some extremely violent offenders today.
Within moments, the officers are on the move, with eyes on their first target.
Waking up to news that mass deportation started today, so if you're an immigrant, please know that you have the right and share this to everyone you know so everyone's aware. You have
police, but they are eyes. Sir, can you identify yourself? Sir, why are you arresting working class people? You're ICE, you're not police. Why are you saying that you police? Don't you feel bad, people that is working?
Here are some things that you need to know to stay protected. For now, ICE is most likely to enter businesses. So let's say ICE comes to the place where you work. What are you going to do? Do not sign anything under any circumstances. You are going to assert 2 rights. The right to remain silent, make sure to actually say that, and a right to call your attorney. Every immigrant should have an immigration plan, which should include memorizing your immigration attorney's number. If you don't understand what they're saying, what they're asking you, and even if you do, just keep asserting those 2 rights. Don't say anything else. Here's what's super important. There's a new act that's going to get passed called the Lakeland-Riley Act. Innocent until proven guilty, doesn't exist. You can be charged for a crime and be immediately deported, even if you're not proven guilty. So there is a huge incentive for ICE officers to charge you for crime. No matter what, no matter how aggressive they are being, do not be aggressive back. Do not resist. Do not give them any reason to charge you with a crime. If someone is there that can film the interaction between you and ICE, even better, so that there is evidence that you are not being aggressive. And now a little disclaimer, because I am Latina and I am scared of our racist government. I am not an undocumented immigrant.
Violation of the 4th Amendment. This is exactly the response that we should be expecting from our politicians. Baraka is not going to let this slide, and he is standing up for his residents. This was never about going after
local, state, even some federal leaders, they can stand up for their residents and constituents all they want. But one thing about it, we as a people, not speaking about Star, as a people, we voted for Donald Trump. Therefore, you could stand up all you want and he just gonna sit you right back down because that's who y'all voted for. Hello?
documented immigrants. ICE will arrest anyone who they deem looks like an immigrant. Doesn't matter if you're a U.S. citizen or resident. If you look like an immigrant, they'll arrest you. And that's exactly what we've been trying to warn people about. They are not just coming for undocumented people. They are coming for everyone.
So here we have some.
So much of our raza is pro this Chiro guy. I don't even want to say his name. But I ask you guys, let's come together in prayer, because what else can we do? Spread the word, share resources, let people know they have rights.
Considering that the ICE raids are happening right now, and a lot of immigrants are going to be deported back to their countries, I would like to share my story as an immigrant. I was born in Mexico City and now live in Mexico City. But when I was 4 years old, my dad was offered a job to live in Boston, Massachusetts. Well, in Framingham, Massachusetts. And my parents took it. They decided it was a great opportunity to live abroad. And so we moved as a family when I was 4. We lived there for 7 years, and they were a great 7 years. I had an amazing childhood. It was early 2000s. I was, living in New England. In Massachusetts, it's a beautiful state. It was very liberal. It was super diverse. I grew up knowing people from all over the world, and it really felt like this vibrant American spirit of, if you want to come here and dream and make your dream come true, you can, and so I really appreciated the US a lot. I would say the Pledge of Allegiance proudly, and I was also extremely proud of being Mexican. Like, for me, it was an honor to be a Mexican immigrant. We lived 7 years in Framingham, and then my dad was offered a better job in North Carolina, and so we moved to North Carolina. Now, that story is it has its own story. It was very complicated, and definitely it was a huge culture shock. It was very different to New England, completely different. It was not actually the South. And so, well, we lived for a year, and honestly, I will tell you that I hated living in North Carolina, and I wished to not live there any longer. And it's funny because that year my parents decided to change their plan. We would come to Mexico every 2 years and do all of the legal immigration paperwork in Mexico City because we would first come here. But that year, my parents decided to go through Arizona from the north to the south. And so our date to go to the embassy was going to take place in Nogales in the north, in the border. And I don't know if it was because it was the border. I don't know if it was just bad luck. I don't know if it's because of Obama, that Obama had just entered presidency. I have no idea. But the point is that year, my father did not have a paper. They told him that he had his visa had expired. He was not gonna be able to renew it. And he would have to live in his country of origin for a year before he reapplied for that same visa. And because my dad didn't have the paperwork to be able to apply for another visa and not have that happen, they told him that they were going to cancel our visas. And so even though he asked for an extension, he said, no, I have this paperwork. I could go back in my house and bring it. The consulate said no and took our visas, canceled them, and told us that we would have to wait a year. Of course, my father's boss was alarmed when he heard the news, and he tried everything to plead to the government that they grant him an exception. They grant my father an exception, and they didn't. He went to higher courts. They didn't accept, and we after a few months of living here, my parents understood that we were not going to go back. And so they put all of our stuff into storage units. They asked our neighbors to do that because we were renting a house in North Carolina. And we were first living with my mom's friend. And then eventually my parents said, we have to rent our own place. And we rented a place in a tiny apartment here in Mexico City. The problem was that my dad was not being hired here. They said he was overqualified. And honestly, I think it's due to a lot of nepotism in companies, and that people don't actually want to be competitive. And so they weren't hiring him because they were like, no, you're going to take my job. And so my dad was being paid meager wages in contrast to what he was being paid in the US. And my mom had to start working to be able to make ends meet. They had put us in private schools here in Mexico because the public system is not that good. And that that economic struggle made them not be able to pay a few months the storage unit. And so my dad was like notified that the storage company had sold our storage unit. And I remember when my mother sat my brother and I down and told us that news. I remember asking her, what about my dolls? What about my photo albums, my childhood photo albums? What about, and I would ask her all of these things that don't really have monetary value, but are very valuable to a person. And she said, everything is gone. We have nothing anymore. And that year was funny because that trip that we had made, my dad didn't want to travel. We didn't want to pay for luggage. So he said that we could only bring our handheld luggage. And so we had traveled super light. And so I didn't have, like, the things that I had brought were like, I brought my Twilight books, like, now thinking about it, I was like, oh, I would have brought so many other things. And even though that was extremely painful and it still kind of stings, it's still very terrible. One of the really, really difficult things that I had to live through was having to integrate my identity. In the US, I had been a Mexican immigrant. I was proud of being a Mexican. I was like, for me, being from Mexico was awesome. I loved talking about Dia de los Muertos, really exemplifying our culture, whatever. Even though what I learned was not like completely authentic because I didn't grow up here, but I was definitely proud of being Mexican. But I was also like super proud of being an immigrant and being an immigrant in the US. Like, for me, that was a great thing. I didn't see the US as a terrible, terrible thing because it was still the time when, we all believed that the US was a champion and was amazing and that, they were doing amazing things. And so here in Mexico, the view is a bit different, We have very, it's a complex theme to talk about, how Mexicans perceive the US, but there's a lot of resentment to the US, a lot. And I lived through that, in the first person. I was even told one time that I wasn't Mexican because I hadn't grown up there, which I understand. I understand why that classmate had told me that, but also it was extremely painful to be told that when I was like, bro, I don't even have a green card. Like if I'm not Mexican, then what the fuck am I, And so, I don't know. Now that I see what's going on, my heart really goes out to all of the immigrants that are going to come back to their countries. It's not an easy process to come back. There's a lot of culture shock. It's not, because the country that you left is not the same.
So in a nutshell, parents need to be very cognizant of the decisions that they make that will impact their children. It's just like being any other type of criminal and being on the run. Because basically, if you're here illegally and you know it's against the law, like, you're always in a state of being on the run, whether you know it or not. Like, you're always 1 second or one misstep from being found out. So how do I feel overall? I am not against deporting people who came here illegally. I do believe that because of that and how easy it has been to get over here, that we have attracted a lot of unnecessary criminal activities, burdens on our financial system, burdens on our welfare system, burdens on our human services workers, social workers, all of those things. So if we can eliminate all of that stuff for the low investment of paying the people to round these folks up, which ICE has been in existence anyway. They probably have increased the staff, but we'll see what those numbers look like eventually. The low cost of shipping them back to wherever the hell they came from. I want to see us as taxpayers, be able to recoup some of this money. So all the money we're not spending trying to pay for birth control and birthing kids and food stamps and housing and all of the things that we freely have given people who don't pay into our tax system, I want to see that reflected in tax cuts for the actual citizens, okay? So this has been your girl, Marisa Star of Star TV. And as always, y'all, please share your thoughts and opinions and let me know if we need a follow-up. Because this is ongoing, baby. Like I said, it ain't even been a week yet. Only more to come.